Welcome, story lovers, to Crimson Vow Stories, where every promise is carved in blood and every betrayal demands ritual justice. I am your silent oracle. Under a blood-white moon, Sir Arden binds his life to Lady Aurelia, only to uncover secret pacts that shatter his faith. Torn between duty and vengeance, he stands at dawn's pale edge. Subscribe now to join our covenant and witness the Nightingale's crimson oath unfold. In the half-light before midnight, the world seemed suspended between silver and shadow. The sky above the Crimson Keep was a glassy black, broken only by the hollow moon, the same moon under which countless vows had been sworn and shattered. Tonight, it hung blood-white, a silent witness to the ceremony about to unfold. A hush pressed across the courtyard, broken only by the steady drip of molten candle wax that fell like tears from the countless torches lining the marble colonnades. Their flames guttered in the chill breeze, casting roving tongues of flame that danced across carved pillars veined with dark, dried stains. No torch dared stand still for more than a breath under the moon's baleful gaze. At the far end of the courtyard, beneath a canopy of crimson silks, a lone figure knelt. The heavy fabric of his dark tabard pooled around him, edged in threads of burnished gold. Sir Arden's gauntlet clanged softly against stone as he pressed a metal-plated fist to his chest. Each plate was etched with the insignia of the keep, a coiling thorn wreath encircling a broken dagger, symbol of loyalty as much as warning. He bowed his head, though his armor's creak betrayed his tension. In the ghostly candlelight, the faintest quiver passed through him, as if his vow might carve the air itself. When he finally spoke, his voice was a low cadence, unwavering yet laden with weight. "By blood and steel," he intoned, "I bind my life to Lady Aurelia's breath. No harm shall pass these gates. No darkness shall cross her threshold while I yet draw breath." The candle drip grew louder, as though the keep itself wept to hear these words. Arden let his fist fall from his chest, the gauntlet's iron plates catching flame in a final, defiant glimmer. Then he rose, silhouette tall and angular, facing a form draped in silken shadows. Lady Aurelia's gown shimmered like spilled wine. From beneath a crimson veil, her silver-white hair fell in a cascade that caught the firelight, each strand a whisper of moonlight itself. Her eyes, pale as frost, regarded Arden without betraying love or pity, only the solemn stillness of one who knew too well the cost of oaths. A candlelit hush lingered between them. Then, as though answering Arden's silent question, Aurelia lifted her delicate hand and touched the pommel of his long sword. The metal hummed at her fingertip, a tremor that spoke of ancient runes etched deep within the steel. "Then let our fates be sealed," she whispered, voice smooth as a drawn blade. "Let blood and iron be our covenant tonight." She withdrew her hand, and the courtyard seemed to catch its breath. Arden bowed once more, this time, not in subservience, but in unity. Above, the hollow moon stared coldly on as two souls sealed a pact that would demand more than either could know. Draped in crimson silks, the temple courtyard had an almost theatrical grandeur, as though every marble slab and carved pillar existed to showcase the ceremony. Yet beneath its splendor lay a tension so taut it might snap the instant Arden's oath faltered. Servants hovered in the periphery, hooded figures who held torches like watchful sentinels. None dared to steal a breath while the vow was in the air. Arden moved away from the canopy, every step measured, his armor's muted rasp echoing like distant thunder. He paused at the base of a flight of steps leading to the keep's inner sanctum, massive doors of iron banded with bronze studs. There, Lady Aurelia awaited him, the torchlight catching the inlaid rubies on her russet veil. He halted before her, lowering his sword until its tip kissed the stone at her feet. The hush deepened as Aurelia placed her hand atop his sword hilt. Her touch was cool, almost antiseptic, yet it burned with an ineffable authority. Aurelia's voice rose, clear and resonant. "You who have bound yourself by blood, know this. Every vow carries its shadow. Should you fail to guard me, your steel shall shatter, your honor undone. This night we stand beneath the hollow moon, but dawn may reveal new betrayals. Keep your oath as you keep your blade, unwavering. Her words, though softly spoken, cut through the courtyard like a drawn rapier. Arden lifted his gaze to meet her frosted stare. His mask of steel betrayed nothing, but his eyes smoldered with fierce devotion. "I will not falter," he promised. "My blade, my blood, my very soul are yours to command. Let the world burn, so long as you remain unscathed." Aurelia inclined her head in a gesture both regal and recessive, as though she accepted his soul's pledge yet forewarned him that the highest oaths often demanded the gravest sacrifices. 2 signs of foreboding. As the final ember of candle flame guttered to a low glow, the hush fractured. A distant footfall, soft, deliberate, cracked the silence. Arden pivoted, sword half-drawn, but the figure emerging from shadow was no enemy. It was the Master of Rites, a gaunt man draped in midnight blue robes, his eyes ancient and rimmed with exhaustion. He carried no torch. The swirling gloom itself seemed to illuminate his pallid face. "Forgive the intrusion," he murmured, bowing to the pair. But portents stir within the keep's heart. The blood moon approaches its zenith. Omens I cannot ignore. Aurelia's hand tightened on the sword's hilt. Arden stepped forward in unison, shield raised like a bulwark. "Speak without fear," Arden commanded. "Tell us what shadows stretch toward our fate." The Master of Rites inhaled, his voice a hollow echo. A shard of prophecy splintered in 3. A broken seal, a crimson tear, and a final dusk marked by a deadly blade. "You have sworn a vow tonight. Yet already, the seal grows cold. Amber-scented letters carry whispers of betrayal. The blood you pledged will demand account." He extended a thin, shaking hand, revealing a strip of parchment stained with a rusty sliver, the first mark of what was to come. Aurelia's veil fluttered as if stirred by an unseen wind. Arden's grip on his sword tightened. Their eyes met, the unspoken question passing between them. How deep did? Even as the Master of Rites spoke, Arden recognized the seal's pattern. A foreign icon, a twisted sigil not borne by any ally of the keep. His breath caught. He tore free from Aurelia's side and strode toward the north wing, where the private archives lay. Tapestries lining the corridor showed generations of Crusader oaths, but every whisper of their history could not arm Arden against a fresh betrayal. Within the archives, scrolls lay in alcoves behind iron lattices. Candle sconces burned low, and the air carried the faint scent of old parchment and melting wax. Arden ran his gauntlet hand over a stack of sealed letters, some bearing the familiar crest of the keep, others stamped with neutral wax. His heart thundered as he found 3 letters bound by the same foreign seal. They lay atop the keep's ledger, proof that Aurelia's name had been invoked in secret negotiations. The top letter bore a single line in careful script. "My loyalty endures beyond kingdoms, but not beyond mine ambition." Arden's fist tightened around the parchment. The words seemed to burn beneath his touch. His mind raced back to Aurelia's parting admonition. Every vow carries its shadow, and now that shadow was unspooling. Moonlight filtered through high arched windows in the keep's northern wing, tracing pale lines across the flagstone floor. Here, within the ancient archives, the air held the musk of dust and aging parchment, a sanctum of every vow ever pled by the Crimson Keep's lords. Arden entered with measured steps, his gauntlet hand brushing carved runes along the doorframe. Torchlight flickered behind him, but he did not summon his own lantern. His eyes, honed by nights of vigil, pierced the gloom as if his determination carved the shadows away. He paused before a series of iron-latticed alcoves. Within each rested scrolls bound by wax seals, crimson, gold, black. Some bore the keep's thorn-wreath crest. Others, a nondescript sheen that whispered neutrality. Arden's breath caught when he saw 3 seals identical to the one the Master of Rites bore. His gloved fingers closed around the first bound scroll. The wax crackled under his touch, sharp, accusing. With a single clinical snap, he broke the seal, releasing a sigh of molten wax. He withdrew a parchment, its script written in a fluid hand. "Promise kept is promise broken. My gratitude lies with those who feed my ambition. Arden's heart thundered at the betrayal. He dredged the other 2 scrolls from their alcoves. One was a letter of introduction from a distant warlord, her name inked in the margins as guarantor. The other, a contract tying Aurelia's right to succession to clandestine arms shipments across the border. He pressed his palm to his helmeted brow. Every syllable burned like a blade's edge. Yet he did not yield to fury. His oath demanded truth first, justice later. He replaced the scrolls with care, resealing the empty alcove before storming from the archives. The corridor outside the archives twisted into a grand hall hung with banners. The keep's crimson standard above, banners of allied houses below. The torch sconces cast wavering shapes, lengths of shadow like dark tendrils across the stone. There, Lady Aurelia waited, her russet veil fallen back to reveal her expressionless face. 2 guards stood behind her, blades at rest. Arden halted before her, sword in hand. "Aurelia," he began, voice low. "3 seals of betrayal sit heavy in the archives. I have seen your name pledged to arms merchants and warlords beyond our walls." Her gaze did not flicker. Only the faintest arch of her brow betrayed concern. "You read well, Sir Arden," she replied, her voice soft as velvet. "But words on parchment can mask deeper truths. You must trust me." "Trust." Arden's blade tip tapped the stone at her feet. "My faith lies in the blade I pledged to your service. These seals are not fictions of scribes. They bear your mark." Aurelia's thin lips curved. "And yet think, we stand on the brink of war. The keep's coffers run hollow. I sought alliances beyond the throne's reach to secure provisions for our people. Grain, steel, coin." Arden's grip tightened. "So you barter the sanctity of vows for mortal comforts? You call that mercy?" "Mercy," she whispered, stepping closer. "Or necessity." Her hand slipped to his pauldron. "I did what any sovereign must. Choose the lesser of 2 devastations." He closed his eyes, recalling the midnight vow, "No harm shall cross your threshold," and the prophecy's coda. A broken seal, a crimson tear, a final dusk marked by a deadly blade. "Necessity," he echoed. "But at what cost to the heart?" Arden's mind fractured between love and duty. Every footstep away from Aurelia felt like another step toward a chasm of uncertainty. He found himself in the silent gallery, a vaulted corridor lined with statues of past guardian knights, each carved in unwavering devotion. He fingered the hilt of his sword, half drawn. "If she lies," he murmured, voice catching on stone, "then my blade must speak truth." A flicker of movement caught his eye. A hooded figure slipped around the corner, silver mask glinting beneath torchlight. Arden lunged forward, blade sailing from its scabbard, only to find empty air and the whisper of a silk cloak. In the gloom, a single scrap of parchment fluttered to the floor. He retrieved it. A fragment of Aurelia's handwriting. "I owe you this much. All other debts I will repay in blood." Blood. The word repeated in his mind, tasting sour. He pressed the note to his helm and let it fall to the cold stone, unreadable. Beneath the statue's unblinking gazes, Arden realized doubt had nested in his heart. Once more he sought the master of rites, finding him in the chapel's alcove, a sanctum of faded frescoes and extinguished braziers. The master's robes were askew, and his eyes, once distant, now shone with urgent clarity. "You have seen the seals," the master said without greeting, "and felt the pulse of the fragment you found. Good. Doubt is the forge in which truth emerges tempered." Arden bristled, impatience coiling like a serpent. "Then speak plainly. Does she betray your keep? Or do you guard her secret?" The master folded his hands, voice unmoving. "Lady Aurelia stands between ruin and salvation. Her pacts saved our granaries. Her alliances filled our armories. Yet she gambled with sacred vows, and paid little heed to the scars she'd leave." Arden's breath slashed in his armor. "Scars of my heart? Scars of this land," the master replied. "Soon you must decide if you will defend her secrets, or judge them. But beware, The third prophecy marker awaits. Arden remembered the prophecy's 3 shards. The broken seal, the crimson tear, the final dusk. He stilled. "What is the crimson tear, master?" he asked in a voice hushed like dusk. The master's gaze pierced him. "A sacrifice born of broken trust. Seek the bleeding rose." By the outer ramparts lay the royal rose gardens, a place once celebrated for beauty, now tended only by moonlit hands. Arden strode through long alleys of thorn-laden bushes, their petals pale beneath the silver light. Here, the last marker would presume its shape. He reached a solitary rosebush, its blossoms black-veined with red, as though each petal bled at the touch. Beneath it lay a pool of dew-stained petals and one fresh drop of blood. Aurelia stood in silence, tears glinting at the corners of her eyes. She wore no veil. Her gown, once of russet velvet, was streaked with mud and the stain of petals. "I told you," she began, voice shaking, "that necessity came with a price. My mother, your queen, died betrayed by those she sought to save. When palace wagons starved, I took her mantle, and blamed no one but the crown. I swore I'd never let our people suffer thus again." A fresh tear rolled down her cheek, falling onto her palm and mingling with the blood of the flower. "But every time I forged a treaty, a thorn sought my heart. These alliances demanded souls as currency." Arden knelt to gather the fallen petal, his gauntlet stained red. "Why show me this?" he asked, voice soft as morning. "Because you must know, the rose that bleeds cannot bloom twice," Aurelia replied, stepping close. "I cared for this garden with my own hands, trusting every thorn to guard its beauty. And yet tonight, even the roses have bled for me." The air trembled between them. Arden raised his stained gauntlet, sighting the petal like a talisman. He felt the weight of his vow press upon him once more. "No harm shall cross your threshold." But harm had already arrived. Arden rose, the crimson petal between finger and thumb. The prophecy's 3rd shard, the crimson tear, lay in his palm, a testament to bridal sorrow. He met Aurelia's tear-filled eyes and steeled himself. "My lady," he said, voice unwavering, "no vow can flourish on thorns alone. If your pain demands blood, then let it be mine, but not your people's, not your keep's." Aurelia bowed her head, acceptance and relief warring in her gaze. "You would lay down your life for my sins?" she whispered. He placed the petal on her palm, its red stain on her skin. "I swore to guard your breath. I now vow to bear your burdens. But you must trust me, utterly." She lifted her face, meeting his dark eyes. For a trembling moment, they stood as equals in betrayal and devotion. Then, as though an unspoken command had passed, she reached for his hand and squeezed. In that clasp, Arden felt a quiet strength rekindle. He knew the final act awaited, a ritual reckoning where blade and oath would collide. But for now, they had found a sliver of unity in shadow. The first pale fingers of dawn crept over the jagged battlements of Crimson Keep, washing the ancient stone in ashen light. A chill wind spiraled through the ramparts, tugging at Arden's cloak and stirring the crimson banners that once celebrated triumph. Now they hung tattered, their gold-embroidered thorns brittle with neglect. Arden stood at the parapet's lip, the gauntlet he had sealed only hours before now splintered and useless at his side. His sword, the same blade that had shone loyally beneath the temple's glow, felt heavy in his grip, as though burdened by every oath he had ever sworn. He surveyed the courtyard below. Empty torches guttered in their sconces, and the hush of pre-dawn lay thick across the stones. No servant dared stir at this hour. No guard would challenge the knight who had sealed his allegiance with blood. Yet Arden was no longer comforted by the solitude. The prophecy's final shard, the dusk marked by a deadly blade, echoed in his mind. Behind him, footsteps approached, measured, unhurried. Corded with grief and resolve, Arden did not turn. Lady Aurelia emerged from shadow, a silhouette of russet silk, mud-stained but proud. Her silver hair, loose around her shoulders, caught the faint light like threads of starlight. "Sir Arden," she said, voice low. The dawn unsettles my heart. I swore we would meet only at dusk's close, never at daybreak. He did not speak. He motioned to the gauntlet shards at his feet and the blade in his hand. Aurelia's breath caught. You shattered your own vow, she whispered. Yet your blade remains unbloodied. Arden's grip tightened. A vow bound by blood must be broken by blood, he replied. You have stained your word with sealed treachery. Now I must unbind my soul from yours. Her pale eyes flickered with sorrow and steel. I never asked for absolution, she said. Only for mercy. He lifted his sword, the steel reflecting the dim light like a jagged promise. Mercy for the guilty demands sacrifice. With that, Arden drove the blade's flat edge into the stone between them, shattering the last of his pledge. The impact rang like judgment. Splinters of granite flew, and the sword quivered in his hand, an echo of the vows now sundered. Arden drew a breath that shuddered through his armor, then raised his sword high. His voice boomed across the silent keep. By this steel I unbind our oaths, and crown my vengeance. Let the blood you have sown reap harvest upon your name. He twisted the blade, sending a spray of sparks as metal scraped stone. In that fracture, a hidden blade, its edge newly honed, slid free from the longsword's guard. He pricked a fingertip and let the crimson drop mingle with the granite's dust. Let this crimson tear be the seed of justice, Arden intoned. His final words a ritual conducted beneath the half-sun, and the hollow moon faded behind him. He exhaled, and with a swift arc, he cast the bloodied spark into the sour dawn air. The drop vanished, swallowed by the wind, as though the keep itself drank deeply of his wrath. For a heartbeat the world held still. Then, from the keep's gates, a single trumpet blast, sharp, shaming, echoed through the courtyard. Guards spilled onto the stones. Armored knights, archers, and servitors, each bearing the crest of Crimson Keep. Their eyes widened at the sight of Arden alone atop the battlements, sword raised in solitary defiance. Aurelia did not move. She stood beneath him, tears shining on her cheeks, her russet silk clinging to her like a battle standard of grief. She offered no defense, no plea. Arden recognized her dignity, even as his heart shattered. Arden, she whispered, voice lost beneath the trumpet's wail. He glanced down, meeting her gaze one final time, resolution and heartbreak intertwined. Then, without a backward glance, he sheathed the blade and turned away, descending the rocky stair into a future marked by his broken vow. Weeks passed before the halls of Crimson Keep stilled to their normal rhythms. The courtyard bells tolled only for council and ritual, no longer announcing nightly oaths by torchlight. Lady Aurelia withdrew from public view, presiding in silence over the granaries and armories whose seams she had once fearfully patched with foreign pacts. Arden's fate, however, remained an unspoken question. Some said he wandered nights beyond the walls, a lone sentinel against bandits and worse. Others whispered that he had joined the Brotherhood of the Crimson Blade, a clandestine order devoted to upholding abandoned oaths. Yet on the eve of the Blood Moon's return, a lone rider thundered through the keep's gates, cloak torn, hoarse breath puffing in the chilled dusk. The rider dismounted before the great hall. Arden, gauntlet mended but sword sheathed. Before the gathered lords and serfs, he spoke. I stand here unbound by ancient pledge, but not by purpose. My vengeance has fed the wind, yet justice demands more than fury. I return not to roar defiance, but to forge new vows, ones born of truth, tempered by mercy, and sealed by sacrifices we all must make. Aurelia, seated upon her dais, rose and met his gaze. No words passed between them, only the understanding that the keep would rise or fall by the strength of these new promises. The dawn after Arden's return saw the first council of renewed bonds convene beneath the hollow moon's pale glow. Representatives from allied houses, once courted and shunned, gathered in the courtyard. At the center, a great granite slab bore 3 runic grooves, each ready for the blood seal of a new oath. Arden placed his gauntlet fist to the stone. Aurelia, beside him, laid down a jeweled dagger. Their blood mingled in the runes, a twin sacrifice marking a covenant of transparency, justice, and shared stewardship. As the runes glowed with a dull red pulse, the keep's banners fluttered, not tattered, but whole. Beneath them, a single new standard unfurled, black ice bordered by crimson flame, bearing the twin sigils of Arden's blade and Aurelia's rose. As twilight deepened and crimson keeps great gates closed for the night, hushed voices rose like incense through its torchlit halls. That Arden's blade will stand as shield to the innocent and righteous curse upon the corrupt. That Aurelia's hand, once forced by necessity, now sows mercy, food for the hungry, shelter for the desperate. And together, they herald not blind devotion, but an era forged by hard-won trust. High above, the blood moon ascended into the scarlet sky, and the oracle's voice fell over the silent stones. When once a blade was drawn and vows lay shattered upon stone, a new covenant rose from hearts hardened by betrayal. Under moon and dawn they stand as one, no longer prisoners to broken seal or crimson tear, but architects of a promise that outlives bloodshed. Thank you for witnessing the Nightingale's crimson oath. Soon, grief will become vengeance in Episode 2, The Widow's Lament. Subscribe and ring the bell. Our next ritual beckons.